Hi folks, this is Tony for aminutetomidnight.com. I love the outdoors, whether it's the beach, the forest, farmland, and where I live, we're graced with all of those things, thankfully. So in this short video, I want to get out and about, cook some food on the beach, and also discuss a few things that have been on my mind. And later on in the video, I will show you some footage from during the day. Back to front kind of thing, doing the evening first, but we'll do it that way. To save time in the video, I've already built a little circle of stones to create the fire in and collected the wood. And you can see here I am going to use my favourite fire steel to start it. I explained about doing that in a previous video called Campfire, Coffee, Contemplation and Corona, which you can check out if you want. In a nutshell though, I found some dry tinder and I've used also a cotton ball soaked in Vaseline, which makes a good propellant to start the fire, and sparks from the fire steel or ferro rod quickly ignite that. A cotton ball that has been soaked somewhat in Vaseline or petroleum jelly makes a great fire starter, and sparks from a ferro rod will work in any weather. As you can see, the fire is beginning to take very nicely indeed. So one of the things that's been really on my mind is how few people would really know how to get by in life without all the mod cons that we take for granted in the Western world particularly. How many people are prepared for an extended period, say where supermarkets are closed or banks are closed? And there are so many things now that to me are pointing to the fact that we are really living in biblical end times, with signs beginning to point very much in that direction. And you've only got to look at the coronavirus outbreak at the moment to realise how quickly people can get locked down or find themselves isolated. If a pandemic, for example, really begins to take hold, then things change very rapidly. An economic collapse could happen as a result of this. I'm not saying necessarily this will be the thing that does trigger it, but there is that possibility. Plus there are always earthquakes and volcanoes increasing and so on as well. So it's really been on my mind to get people to realise and think outside the square that it's time to be prepared for these types of eventualities. Now, I don't believe we should live in fear, and I know there are people out there that seem to have the Chicken Little syndrome, that the sky is falling down all the time and they push fear on people. I don't think that's the way to go at all. And particularly if you're a Christian, you should know that God has a plan for you. For example, Jeremiah 29:11, which many of us know. For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. So as far as my food for cooking goes, I got some potatoes earlier in the day, slit them, put butter inside them, and also got some tin foil which I put a bit of butter on, and then wrapped the potatoes up in the tin foil. Now back to the scriptures for a minute. And then there's Psalm 91. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence, and so on it goes. Anyway, I took my potatoes wrapped in tin foil and put them on the edge of the fire. Now, due that it was getting a little bit late and I was feeling very hungry, I rushed it and probably should have waited till the fire had died down a little bit, but hey, I was impetuous, and I put the potatoes there, and they will work out fine, but initially they got a little bit singed on one side because of my impatience. So we know that God has a plan and can protect us, but does that mean that we just sit back and do nothing and wait for God to take us out of the situation, whisk us up and away? I don't think so. I think that it's prudent to actually see the danger signs and to be prepared. Okay, so let's make this a bit personal. Have you personally done anything to prepare yourself for potential disruptions of services? For potentials like quarantine, or being caught in an earthquake or some other natural disaster? Could you survive, or would you be like so many of the masses who have a day or two's food and that's it, relying on the supermarket to provide for you every day? And if there's a disruption in electricity or gas, would you know how to cook without those things? And speaking of cooking, I had brought from home a small grill with me, and when I made my fire circle, I made it to fit the size of my little grill. So I'm able to cook on that. And now that the fire's well established, I actually move my potatoes onto the grill. I brought a good trusty frying pan or cast iron skillet from home, and now I'm cooking some fish. Trevally is the fish that I'm cooking here, and no, I didn't catch it myself, but hey, it's the beach, and even if someone else caught it, the fish is going to taste great, I'm sure. And I'm frying it using a mix of olive oil and butter. So anyway, back to disaster preparedness. I believe it's a very good idea to have enough food stored to last you a period of time. Now, how long that period of time is, well, that's debatable. But there are ways you can do it without spending huge amounts of money. And there are plenty of really good articles and videos around on how to do that. So it's a good idea to research it if you haven't already done so you can spend your money wisely. Okay, so now the fish is ready. Yay, I'm really looking forward to eating it by this point. And the potatoes are pretty close to being ready as well, but I'm just leaving them on there for another 5 minutes or so. And I also brought with me a simple homemade salad from things growing in my vegetable garden, which I'll be adding to my meal. And a great thing about a good cast iron skillet is that it holds its heat extremely well, and the fish will continue to kind of cook a little bit even though it's not on the fire, while the potatoes are having that last little bit of cooking time. And by this stage I'm feeling pretty sure it's going to be a very good feed. And I squeeze a bit of lemon juice onto the fish fillets. The potatoes are now ready as well. And even though one of the potatoes got a bit black on one side from that quick heat blast it got at the beginning, I'm sure it's going to still taste great. perfect. Salad from the garden, tastes great. All up, it's an awesome thing. Now folks, just a few more thoughts on prepping. One thing you've got to make sure is you've got a good water supply. Have water stored or some way of filtering and purifying water if you haven't got lots stored, and even if you have, as a contingency. And another thing, forget the naysayers who would say negative things about precious metals as well, because if you look right now with things with the coronavirus outbreak, immediately you see precious metals going up in price substantially, and that should tell you as soon as there is some major disastrous thing, those precious metal prices are going to go up, while the rest of your money may become less and less valuable. At those times, precious metals are going to increase in value, so it's worth holding some physical gold or silver if you possibly can as well. Okay, so the last part of my lovely evening with a campfire is to make myself a cup of coffee. Well, actually a mix of coffee and chicory coffee. I'm not going to go through all of that here. You can see in a previous video I did Campfire, Coffee, Contemplation and Corona, my method of making this drink. And it tasted great again on this night. So let's now go back to the daytime and look at some footage from earlier in the day. I love the beach and the outdoors, and no matter how bad things get in the world in the future, I think it's important to try and enjoy things as much as we can. And I haven't personally surfed since I was a teen, but I love watching good surfers in action. And you know, just like with the physical ocean, in life we're going to get hit by waves of good things and waves of bad things, and the bad times, sometimes we've just got to ride through them as best we can. And of course, sometimes people get into bad situations which they need to be rescued from, but many times just a little thought and preparation and making the effort to get there on our own with God's help is a much more common sense and I believe scriptural way of approaching things, rather than just letting things happen and doing nothing to prepare. Have a look at Proverbs 27:12. And by the way, this is Andy, who lives near me, and he's always keen to get a bit of good surfing in. Folks, if you take nothing else from this video, I hope it will be just a little stirring to do some preparing for difficult days that I believe lay ahead. But hey, at the same time, try and enjoy your life as best you can and have some fun.